Hello, folks. Beep, 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 beep. Right, we're off. He says, getting comfortable, getting cozy for this one because it's fun. Right, okay. Subscribe if you will. Become a guest. Right, buy me a coffee. Mostly share this. That's the thing. You know, get it out there. I need more peeps watching me. This is just glorious. I couldn't resist doing one on this. I couldn't resist it because it's by the marvellous Judy Burchill, also known, I think, as Booze and Fags, on the old Twitters, if I recall correctly. So this is just glorious. So I had to do one on it. Couldn't help myself because it was so good. And Judy asks the question in The Spectator on the 7th of January. What do Munro Bergdorf and Andrew Tate have in common? And then it's got a picture of Andrew Tate, who looks just like an angry man with a beard, and then a picture of Munro Bergdorf, who just looks like a ridiculous man pretending to be a woman, right? Though he's primped and nonsense about, isn't he? Judy then begins. For inadequate men, scared by self-willed women. By the start of the 21st century, things were getting dangerously out of hand. The old right-wing Kinderkirch method of corralling and controlling us had been woefully discredited with the Second World War, like the old brand of anti-Semitism, coincidentally, which was also looking for a new angle and found it in the fresh and funky Islamist kind. A caring and progressive way to thwart uppity women was needed, but repeated and risible attempts at men's rights movements were rightfully mocked. So how could men abuse women while not being accused of sexism? Simple. Say, we're women too. How can we be misogynists? And so, the shock frock troops of transvestism formed a pincer movement with the aggressive masculinists embodied by Andrew Tate to assault the gains made by women in the 20th century. Gains which took decades to achieve were wiped away in a few strokes of a pen. Separate public toilets to uphold privacy and safety, sports to celebrate female bodies in a rare way that isn't sexual. Sebastian Coe verified this week that sportswomen will never win Olympic gold medals again if they have to compete against men pretending to be women. Opportunities at work to recompense for all the centuries of not being allowed to pursue careers, now given over to men in drag. The work aspect gets less headlines than the first two in the culture wars, but it's interesting in the light of what I'm writing about here. Even after so long in the workforce, it seems like women are often punished with sexual harassment for daring to leave the domestic sphere. We all knew it happened in show business, where the casting couch was long and shameful, open, secret and joke. But who wasn't shocked to read last year a survey which stated that nearly 1/3 of female NHS surgeons have been sexually assaulted by a colleague, often in, for the love of Mike, an actual operating theatre. You can't ban women from the workplace in the West, as some Middle Eastern countries effectively do, but what you can do since the onset of mass transophilia, I love her, mass transophilia in the foremost institutions and corporations of this country, is frustrate female progress by taking many of the most well-paid, high-profile jobs created for women. It would be no surprise to me if the first female leader of the Labour Party had a penis. Another way to degrade and destroy female achievement is to question the very femaleness of prominent women in history, as was done last year with Joan of Arc, now muted as non-binary. Who's next? Elizabeth I? Boudica? And why is it only ever women who have to put up with this revisionist garbage? Why not great male historical figures who may well have been trans? Julius Caesar, every woman's man and every man's woman, as one wag called him. William Braveheart Wallace wore a skirt. And of course John Wayne, real name Marion. Ludicrous, yes, but no more so than the vandalism of the achievements of notable women. Both of which issues brings us to one Munro Bergdorf, a transgender model who has recently been appointed as the first UK champion for the United Nations charity UN Women UK, for the love of God. Which is allegedly, UN Women UK, dedicated to improving the lives of women and girls across the country. Before I get to the meat of the matter, I'd like to indulge in a few paragraphs pettiness. Oh, feel free, Julie. Bergdorf, 36, is no stranger to cattiness themselves. having previously lost their cushy billet as an LGBT advisor to Dawn Butler, then Labour's Shadow Equality Secretary, after calling a woman a hairy, barren lesbian, and boasting that they wanted to gay bash a homosexual TV star. This followed Bergdorf being dumped by L'Oreal the year before for saying that all whites were racist and that suffragettes were white supremacists. If we're name-calling here, why does someone who seeks to present as a living human woman look like a mummified boy pharaoh? It's how she sees. I love how she sees. Bergdorf is one of those rich transvestites who spent a fortune on facial surgery, unlike the poor ones, who tend to resemble bricklayers. But it hasn't really worked, unless the aim was to look like something off Doctor Who. And why do the new transvestites all have names self-respecting strippers would sneer at? Paris, Juno, Monroe. You never hear of a Janice or an Audrey, do you? Monroe was born Ian. Why not simply change it to Iona? Iona Penis, even. Iona Penis. Just genius. Bergdorf gives the phrase falling up a whole new dimension, also having been stripped of their role as ambassador for Childline after Janice Turner of the Times questioned the advisability of putting a porn model in such a role. They are the Eddie Eagle of cross-dressing. So why on earth did the UN think this appointment was a good idea? So far as I know, Bergdorf has no record in campaigning against forced marriage, underage marriage, maternal morbidity, and all those boring uncool things which affect the lives of actual underprivileged people of the female persuasion. It's because the point is to mock women by giving Bergdorf a job. Most women, having grown up as girls rather than boys, as Bergdorf did, could do much better. Bergdorf's UN appointment aims to diss the girls and make them cry, or at least howl with indignation, as a whopping 17 women's rights organisations have. This might sound like turf paranoia if the UN did not have such a record of misogyny. As it is, I'd go as far to say that the UN has found a more subtle way of continuing its war against women, displayed so shamelessly in everything, from the rampant sexual abuse of women and girls in war zones, who their operatives were meant to be protecting, to the 57 days it took them to properly condemn the mass rapes of Hamas. Unlike other half-wits, Bergdorf doesn't question the femaleness of great women in history. Rather, they play the race grifter card on the suffragettes. It's typical of these queer narcissists that the astonishing bravery of the Pankhursts and their girl gang, who routinely faced imprisonment and torture, means nothing to them. Aristocratic suffragettes gave up their class privilege in order to stand shoulder to shoulder with housemaids and mill girls. Bergdorf still stinks of the male privilege he had when he was born Ian Beaumont to middle-class parents in the village of, wait for it, Stansted, Mount Fitchett. They probably think that force-feeding means being slipped a few carbs before marbs by a negligent friend. Yeah, right, go read it, okay? Oh, she can write. You know, it's like she only drops one every now and again. I don't know, that didn't sound right. I don't want to talk about Judy Burchill dropping one, right? But every now and again, Judy drops a doozy of an article. There, I love that bit, right? Drops a doozy. Go and read the rest of it. Judy's bothered to write it. You can bother to read it, all right? And become a warrior teacher. We're starting in March now. We're on our way for March start, okay? Oh, yes, it's exciting. So I'll see you all later. Thank you very much for listening. Go and read Judy's article.